Hi, my name is Chris from Chris at the Piano. On our YouTube channel and our website you will find a series called the Circle of Fifths. And as part of this series you're asked to draw on the back the scale in the treble, the bass, the alto and the tenor clefs. We've had a couple of inquiries as to what the alto and tenor clef are, so I thought I'd just run through the four clefs for you. The treble clef we'll draw on the top line. We need to start at the bottom and we curl round so the bottom of the clef is the same distance as between the lines on the stave, and then we go up at 90 degrees to the stave, finishing around about the same distance at the top as between the lines here. We then curl round to the fourth line from the bottom, like so. Now from here we're going to come round to the fullest on the second line and then come in quite quickly to the last line. So the clef goes round here and in. Now we need to come out to the same distance here as we did there, so the clef looks balanced and symmetrical. So we'll go round and up to the third line. Now we're going to come in and we're going to finish just past the second line. There we go, and that's our treble clef. Now let's look at the bass clef. So we'll do that on the bottom line. We start on the fourth line and we go up to the top with a little curve like so, then round again, coming down at an angle to finish just past the second line. On a computerized clef you will see a little spot there. It's not always needed. Then the most important part are the two dots either side of the fourth line. My first music teacher used to talk about them as buttons on the jacket of the bass clef. The two buttons, the two dots, need to be in the same place all the time, and the two dots are the most important parts. Make sure that they're in the correct place. Now the alto clef, we'll use this one here. First off, we draw a line down. Then we need to do a second line, a little bit like a double bar line. So a second line down, so there's a little gap in between them. The easiest way to explain the next bit is to draw a letter B with the centre of the letter B on the third line, like this. The alto clef looks absolutely identical. Sorry, the tenor clef looks identical to the alto clef, but it's a line higher. It needs to finish here. So we draw the first line and the second line, and the B goes to the fourth line and round to the second line. So this is the treble clef, the alto clef, the tenor clef, and the bass clef. Let's just put those names on. This is the treble, this is the alto, whoops, this is the tenor, and this is the bass. We have a squeaky chalk. I hope the squeaks didn't bother you too much. Now the clef tells us how to read the music that follows. So if we're reading the treble clef, if we have a treble clef on the beginning of the line, that tells me that the note here on line 2 is G4. And the 4 means the fourth G up from the bottom of a full-size piano. It's in the fourth octave. This clef tells me that the note on the third line, where it joins here, is C4. That's the fourth C up from the bottom of the piano. The tenor clef tells me that C4 is found here. So it's a little bit higher. And the bass clef tells me that the line the clef starts on and is in between the two dots, which is this one, is F3, which is the third F up from the bottom of the piano. So two of these are C4. So if we were to draw C4 on this clef, we'd have to work down from G. G, F in the space, E on the line, D in the space, C4 would be there. That's a little high actually. Let's just rub that one off and do that line, ledger line, in a bit of a better position. So a circle and the ledger line, that looks better. That's C4. So this is exactly the same note as this and exactly the same note as this. In the bass clef, C4 would be here above the stave. So this note, this one and this one are all exactly the same note. So depending on what music we want to write, depending on how we want the ledger lines, where we want the primary pitch to be, depends on which clef we want to use. If all the music, or the most of the music, is going to be below C4, we would use this clef. So maybe if you're playing a cello, you would use this clef. Or if you were playing below middle C on the piano, the low notes, you would use this clef. The double bass, again, you would use this clef. If you're going to use this clef, you need some of the notes to be below middle C, but also a few above middle C as well. So if you were playing the higher ranges on a cello, you might want to use this clef. Or if you're singing the upper male part in a choir, you may want to use this clef. The alto clef is for violas, which play a little above and a little below middle C. Trombones also sometimes use the alto clef, as do singers. If you're singing the alto part in the choir, you may use this clef. The treble clef is for the higher pitched instruments, the flute, the violin, the higher singers, the sopranos in a choir, the top part of the piano. Lots of brass instruments use the treble clef, and brass bands use the treble clef a lot. So for instance, the tuba and the trombone, which are low instruments, may be written in the treble clef in a brass band. There are scores available on different websites online where you will see the tenor and the alto clef written for piano. But most of the time we don't really use the alto and tenor clef for piano music, apart from the music on the Tri-Quatre programme, which will use it, because the best way to learn the notes for these clefs is to play music that uses them as well as reading music, because sometimes you've just got to do it to understand it rather than it just be theoretical. I encourage you to write your music out in the alto or tenor clef. You may need to lower it an octave, but if you've got a piece of music that uses a lot of notes below middle C, a lot of these ledger lines, the tenor clef would be a lot easier to use. For instance, guitar music, classical guitar music, has a lot of ledger lines as we go down to E3. Well, you could write that in this clef quite easily because E3 is still within the stave area. C goes down to D, C goes down to B, goes down to A, goes down to G, goes down to F, goes down to E. So on a classical guitar, your E would still be within the stave, which makes it a lot easier to read. You may want to transpose something up from the bass clef. The tenor clef or the alto clef are good clefs to use for this as well. So they can be used more and more, and they're great clefs to practice writing in as well. The more you do it, the easier they will become. And these four clefs make up the clefs that we use up to grade 5 in music theory. I hope that makes sense. There are worksheets down below in the description that you can download to practice drawing all these clefs and practice using and transposing into and out of these clefs. These worksheets are developing all the time, so you're best looking at musicacademyhub.com/shop to see our current ranges of transposition worksheets and clef worksheets. Hope this helps. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and myself or one of my team will get back to you with an answer. Thank you for joining me. See you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.